Who are the top wide receivers heading into free agency? Let's take a look at the PFF top 10 along with Mike Renner. I'm Steve Palazzolo, getting right into it. The number one wide receiver in free agency this year. It's Golden Tate, formerly of the Detroit Lions and most recently of the Philadelphia Eagles. He was a go-to guy in Detroit. We saw Matthew Stafford's numbers really take a big hit once he left and went to Philadelphia. He took a little time to get acquainted with the new system, but then you started to see his skills down the stretch.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a true number one receiver, like you'd like. He's not going to line up on the outside. He plays a lot of snaps from the slot, did so in Detroit and Philadelphia, but what he does do well, he does very well, and that's catch screens, break tackles, run the underneath route tree excellently, and he can make some plays down the field as well. So 20-plus broken tackles each of the last 7 seasons after the catch, one of the most, if not the most elusive receiver in the NFL in that regard. I think that has value in a lot of offenses in today's NFL.
All about usage pattern with Tate. So he can make those contested catches at times, but still an after-the-catch threat,
yes.
Short and underneath his stuff, as you mentioned. So Golden Tate, I mean, it's not a great wide receiver class. Golden Tate being number one. And then we hit to a few more question marks. Only 3 receivers make the PFF top 50 free agents. You can check out that entire list. But number 2 is Tyrell Williams, the number 2 wide receiver hitting free agency. He is more of an outside threat, more of a downfield threat, averaging over 16 yards per reception in his career.
Yeah, but the thing is, his 1,000-yard season came a few years back in 2016 with Keenan Allen on the field. They were just, Phillip Rivers was not looking his way nearly as much, only 1.41 yards per route this past season. That was a little below average in terms of all starting receivers in the NFL, but at the same time, I still think that talent is there in terms of as a downfield threat, as a big play guy. I think there is a lot to like here, but I think it's indicative that he's number 2 of how weak this wide receiver class is for free agency.
Do like him as a complementary threat, and that seems to be the theme with these wide receivers. Right scheme, right situation, and these guys can thrive. The number 3 wide receiver on the list, and the last guy who did make our initial top 50 is Cole Beasley, the slot wide receiver for Dallas, and that's the same issue as these first 2 guys. He's not going to fit every team, he's not going to fit every role, but as a slot receiver, Beasley's been extremely productive.
Yeah, 7th most yards out of the slot of any receiver in the NFL this past season. That's very good. That can fit in a lot of offenses, and the Dallas Cowboys didn't even really use the slot that much in their offense. He wasn't even playing. He was playing only about 60% of the snaps there over the past handful of seasons in Dallas, so he might want to go to a place where he's going to be on the field more, a team that uses a lot more 3 wide receiver sets, and his production will probably even go higher in the coming years.
Coming in at number 4 on our receiver rankings, it's John Brown, most recently of the Baltimore Ravens, similar to Tyrell Williams in that he can stretch the field and he's going to be that potential deep threat that hits the open market.
They're very similar. They both had 1,000-yard years in their second season in the NFL, but both have not been able to replicate it since. John Brown's problem has been he's not played with a quarterback since then. He's not played with a guy who can hit him down the field. He was targeted over 30 times this past season on deep balls, only had 7 catches on those deep balls, but again, not really his fault there. He can get open deep. He still has speed to burn. So if you need a deep threat, that's probably the route I'd go in this free agency class.
Looked promising for John Brown early in the season. Flacco hit him a couple times down the field. It just tapered off down the stretch, and with Lamar Jackson under center. The number 5 wide receiver on our list, it's Adam Humphries. We're back to slot receiver. He's coming off a career year in a Tampa Bay Bucks offense that threw the ball like crazy all over the place. He was kind of a forgotten threat, which is probably why he was extremely productive, but another guy that can get open on the short stuff.
Yeah, also on the younger side, he's only 25 years old. We talked about Beasley being a slot receiver. He's 29 years old. So the younger option here in terms of the slot weapons in the NFL, and like you mentioned, it's peaking at the right time, so there is some value here with Humphries.
The number 6 wide receiver on the open market, it's a Randall Cobb of the Green Bay Packers. What does Cobb have left at this point? Because at one point, he was a top 3 slot receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to usage. Aaron Rodgers just stopped targeting him as much as he did. I still think there is something there. He's only 28 years old. He has actually the exact same birthday as Adam Thielen. You think their trajectories of their careers are going complete opposite ways at this point, but I don't think Randall Cobb's completely washed. I just don't think he probably was at any point. He was probably pumped up a little bit by Aaron Rodgers back in the day in terms of the yardage he was gaining.
And as we get through 7 through 10, a lot of question marks now with the rest of the wide receiver class, some interchangeable type of guys, but Donte Moncrief, we've seen him with the Indianapolis Colts, last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's hit free agency before, And, you know, a lot of people have been waiting for a big breakout season for Moncrief. It hasn't really happened yet.
Yeah, another guy who peaked probably in year 2, hasn't been able to replicate that success since. And like you mentioned, still waiting for the breakout. That's not usually a good thing. Usually that means breakout's probably not coming anytime soon.
The number 8 wide receiver, Devin Funchess, from formerly of the Carolina Panthers, 6'4", 225 pounds. So he does bring that big frame, but they've tried to make him an outside receiver. They've tried him in the slot a little bit. Where does he fit in if a team's going to try to really get the most out of him?
Yeah, I mean, he's just not what you want from a modern receiver. He's not separating at a high level. It's not separating down the field. So I do think slot, sort of the big slot role, is his best role at the NFL. But again, there's a lot of guys can have production from the slot. As we've seen, there's a lot of guys even on this list ahead of him.
And then number 9, it's Chris Hogan, formerly of the New England Patriots. He hits the open market coming off of, he was better in 2016, a couple years ago. That was his first year with the New England Patriots. He's tapered off a little bit since, and he doesn't really have a distinguishable skill set or traits that that may help him to stand out.
There's no real trump card that he possesses at this point. And if you're not producing with a quarterback like Tom Brady, chances are it's not really going to happen anywhere else.
He's not necessarily a slot receiver. He plays most of the time on the outside. And then number 10, Dontrelle Inman, another guy who's just, mediocre pretty much
not a great
across
wide receiver
the board.
class is all we're going to say. Dontrelle Inman's your number 10 guy.
Well, there you go. He had a great run in the playoffs. He had a really nice playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs for the Colts. So the wide receiver class is not great. 3 out of the top 10 here make the PFF Top 50. Be sure to go check out the Top 50 video over here as well. But also check out all of our draft coverage if your team really needs a wide receiver, because the wide receiver class has a lot of question marks this year.